Today we are diving into a fundamental division in the painter's psyche. It's a debate that has quietly raged in studios for centuries, and understanding where you stand can completely unlock the way you approach a blank canvas. And I'm talking about the notion of painting as a tonalist or as a colorist. First, to help you visualize this divide, let's look at how these iconic masters would fall on these opposite sides of the spectrum. On one side, we have the tone painters, the Rembrandts, Caravaggio, Velázquez, Whistler, Corot, Sargent, and on the other, we have those we could call the colorists: Titian, Veronese, Rubens, Monet, Van Gogh, Sorolla. But of course, like the tight versus loose divide, it's not an actual divide that locks you up in a camp forever. It's more like a creative hat that you can choose to wear depending on the situation. So don't go and think that this artist is a tonalist and this other is a colorist, as it would be factually incorrect. What I want to illustrate is how one artist might think more as a tonalist or as a colorist, and how the line between the two can be blended. To demonstrate exactly how the line between a tonalist and a colorist blurs in the real world, I've chosen a master study of Jean-Baptiste Camille Corot for this week's demonstration, and the full demonstration is on the Patreon. You can follow the links in the description box. Corot is one of the most fascinating figures in the history of art because he stands as a very pivotal bridge between two entirely different worlds. He is between the rigid structure of neoclassicism and the fleeting light-obsessed universe of Impressionism. And Corot himself wasn't a tonalist by historical definition. His moody, atmospheric landscapes laid the groundwork for what then became the tonalist school in America, a school that was actually named tonalism. And here, right now in this video, when I talk about lowercase tonalism, I am not referring to this specific 19th century American art movement. And instead, I'm talking more of tonalism as a universal term to describe a certain approach to painting. So back to Corot, as I said, he inspired the tonalist side of the spectrum, but he also inspired the colorists because his radical insistence on painting en plein air, outdoors, directly in front of nature, deeply inspired some artists who came after him, the Impressionists, who were the ultimate colorists, if you want. So Corot is the perfect artist, the perfect bridge between tonalism and colorism. And because Corot stood with one foot in the world of value and the other in the world of light and color, studying his approach is the perfect way to understand how tonalism and colorism actually interact on a physical canvas and how you can learn from that in your own practice. Number one, there is a massive misconception as soon as you utter the word tonalism that encourages people to think that painting with a tonal focus means emptying your palette of everything except brown, shades of mud and brown. And in this demonstration, actually, I wanted to completely debunk this myth. If you look at the palette that I've laid out for this Corot master study, and again, I don't need this palette to match what Corot actually used during his time, that's not the point. Anyway, I actually used a pretty chromatic palette with very strong pigments. I used titanium white, yellow ochre, pyrrole red, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, phthalo green yellow shade. Then I used a little bit of quinacridone rose and a base of burnt umber for the brown. And aside from the earth tones, the yellow ochre and burnt umber, these pigments are incredibly strong, highly chromatic. Phthalo green and quinacridones are two of the most potent pigments you can get in a modern palette. And the lesson here is that you do not need to use sad colors to paint a tonal painting. Instead, the magic lies in how you can force these high-octane pigments to work together. They tune each other down. And by prioritizing their value relationships over their raw hue potential, you can neutralize their loudness while retaining the deep optical vibration that only high chroma pigments can provide. If you work as a tonalist, you make the pigment's strength blend together as complements to bring them back down to something neutral and highly focused on values. But as a colorist, you let the strong pigments fully express their chromatic potential by not blending them. See, so ultimately the difference only lies in how much you keep the pigments separated on the canvas. If you blend them a lot, if you mix them thoroughly, you will get a tonalist palette. And if you keep them segregated, juxtaposed, separated and not blended, then you get a colorist palette. But you can start with exactly the same pigments from scratch. And this is exactly where tonalism and colorism meet in everyday practice, because they don't need a specific palette. They can emerge out of the same palette. As a painter, you can use the chemical purity of a colorist palette, but govern it with the strict discipline of a tonalist's value hierarchy, because these are the same pigments. It's not the pigments you use, it's how you approach their separation or their blending. For example, when I mix the sky or the foliage in this demo, I'm using those bright blues and greens, but I'm immediately tempering them with white or with yellow ochre or with brown to bring them down into a more precise or a quiet value range. And sometimes I let the exuberance of the pigments show off. Like for example, when I mix a deep, dark, kind of weird dark green with a phthalo green, yellow shade, and quinacridone rose and brown, which creates something kind of deep that really shows, as you can compare, because these pigments are so vibrant that even though they look pitch black on the palette, when you actually lay them down, they have a depth, they have a chromatic intensity that is unmatched. So you use the qualities of the colorist palette, but because you blend the pigments together, you achieve a more tonalist approach. So the colorist mind brings the intensity and the tonalist brings the structure. It's more a way of thinking rather than a category of art. And still, a tonalist approach is still full of depth and color despite its name. If you observe on this shot how the colors of the painting feel so much more powerful compared to the washed out version of the printer, there is a depth in the pigment that my printer wasn't capable of achieving. And it shows how the balance between tonalism and colorism is really what creates a rich painting. When you learn how to balance both, you realize that value is the leash that keeps your wildest colors in check, allowing you to create a painting that's both intensely realistic and beautifully harmonized. And this notion of tonalist versus colorist is not something new, actually, and I was inspired to talk about this topic by Daniel Burley Packhurst, a brilliant American painter who studied under the legendary academic master William Adolphe Bouguereau, and he wrote a book titled The Painter in Oil, in which he perfectly encapsulated the divide. Some painters have been called tone painters or tonalist, while others have been called colorists. Not that tone painters are not colorists, but that there is a difference. It is a difference of aim, a difference of desire. Those painters who are usually called colorists, like Titian and Rubens, are in love with the richness and power of the color gamut. They are full of the splendor of color. They paint in full key, however balanced the canvas. Each note of color tells for its full power. Their stop is the open diapason, and their harmony is the harmony of large intervals and full chords. The tone painter deals with close intervals. He's in love with subtle harmony. What he loves is the essence of the color quality and not its splendor. With the closest range, he can give all possible halftones and shades and modulations of color, yet never exceed the gray note perhaps, never once go to the full extent of his palette power, the utmost delicacy of perception and feeling, and the most perfect command of materials and of values are necessary to such a painter. But I think that to understand the key technicality between this in this divide is really you have to look at the 3 dimensions of color. As you know, hue, the color family, value, how light or dark it is, and chroma. These are the big 3. Hue, value, chroma. Tone painters or tonalists choose to live and die by value mostly. Their primary objective is the realism of form, the weight of the volume of the object, the mystery of the atmosphere, and they operate within a tight, quiet range of middle values, meaning that they can paint an entire masterpiece without even pushing their palette to its brightest, loudest limits. Colorists, on the other hand, are more in tune with the hue dimension and the chroma. They aren't really interested in a quiet, moody atmosphere. They want to create a striking, intense composition that vibrates off the wall. That's almost like eye candy. They use wide intervals and full crashing chords of pure pigments and separated pigments to make a visual statement that really shines, that stand out. Each color is laid down as clearly segregated from the others as possible so that it can truly reveal its chromatic potential. But here is the secret that most art schools won't tell you. You do not have to pick a side and stay here forever. Think of the tonalist to colorist scale as a slider or a dial. Sure, you might be predominantly one over the other, but on any given day, depending on the story you want to tell or you want to paint, you can slide the dial all the way to the moody tonal left or push it to the vibrant high chroma right. You aren't locking yourself in a box. You are more choosing which tool to use. If you are conscious of this divide, then this is how you can grow as an artist, because once you know about this kind of stuff, you can think and do things voluntarily with meaning. And if you want to use this concept to improve your actual painting execution, you can download these resources and try and practice for yourself. And the number one thing you want to keep is you want to keep this slider in mind. You want to keep this divide in mind and understand at which point you are on what side of the scale, because it's not one side or the other. It's more a nuance between the two. But first, it matters to understand your own tastes, how you got educated in the world of art. So go look at your personal collection of favorite artists, your favorite art books, your list of 5 favorite artist painters. Take the big 5, the 5 artists that are the most influential to you, and try to analyze their work under this microscope. Are you consistently attracted by them because of their atmospheric tonal qualities, or do you get a sort of a dopamine hit from the vibrant colors that they paint? What it is about them in this divide that is attracting you? And you'll probably see that most of them mostly predominantly are on one side. Knowing that, you will learn that you got naturally attracted by something that's more on one side or more on the other. And from there, what you want is you want to practice with different hats. You want to dedicate your next few studio sessions to deliberate experimentation. Do one small study where you wear the tonalist hat, restrict your palette, limit the potential of your most potent pigments, make sure that they are all in tune with the values mostly, and see how much emotion you can squeeze out of a very simple gray note or a simple brown. And on the next study, then you can put the colorist hat and you push the saturation to the extreme. You play with complementary hues. You let the colors juxtapose without blending, and you see how much of this visual vibration you appreciate and how well you can paint with this mindset. And then that's about doing this deliberately, stating your goal before you squeeze the paint. Before your brush ever touches the canvas, you want to explicitly state your objective to yourself. Look at your reference and ask yourself, what hat am I going to be using today? It's just about being intentional. Being intentional before you start prevents your painting from becoming a muddy and a very sad compromise between two ideas that are fighting each other for your attention. So how about you? Are you more a tonalist or a colorist? Let me know in the comments section below. If you want to watch another great video, click here. I'll see you for the next one. And as always, my friends, joy and inspiration to you. Bye.